Okay, colleagues, it's just after 4 o'clock. I'm going to call the SPPC meeting to order. Please accept my apologies for the state of my voice today. It's a little bit under the weather, but I know that we've got a relatively short agenda here and we're going to be very efficient and we're going to work our way through. We'll be done before we know it. As I'm looking around, I'm looking for any pecuniary interest declarations. Okay, we have none. I understand from some information was passed on to me from clerks that one of the councillors would like to deal with item number 5. This is the support to host prior to doing committee appointments. So committee, it's my intention to deal with consent item 2, consent item 4, pardon me, item 4, item 5, and then we'll circle back and do our committee appointments at the end of the meeting. I think that would be most respectful to our guests. So without any further ado, let's go to the staff report. This is the establishment of the Indigenous Relations Working Group. You'll see a list of council members who have put their name forward to sit on this, this group. If you didn't have an opportunity to let the clerks know that you're interested in sitting, now would be a good time to do so. If you want to also serve, it would be no problem at all to add one or more councillors to the list. And any speakers to this? Okay, I have no speakers, so if we could get a motion to come up on screen. It's been moved by Councillor Ridley, it's been seconded by Councillor Zafman. There's no discussion. Let's call the question. We are voting.
Councillor Armstrong? Closing the vote, the motion carries 14-0.
Okay, let's move to item 5. This is the council member submission support of hosting request, the International Ploughman Match. I'd like to turn things over to Councillor Armstrong. If you checked your added colleagues, you'll see that there's a request for delegation. I understand that the ED from the International Ploughman Match is here.
Thank you, Your Worship. And yes, Kathy Lasby, the Executive Director of the Ontario Ploughman's Association, is here, and I would ask that she be allowed to have delegation status, because I'm sure that many on council may have questions about this particular opportunity, and so I'd like to move that first of all.
Okay, delegation status has been moved by Councillor Armstrong. It's been seconded by Deputy Mayor Hubert. Any discussion on that before we call the question? Okay, that'll come up on screen in a moment. Okay, Councillor Armstrong, that's up on screen now if you'd like to move it. Moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hubert. Again, any discussion? I'll go to Councillor Zafman.
Sorry, about to stand up, trying to remember which meeting it is. Just a quick question through you, Mr. Chair. In the request from Councillor Armstrong to his letter to us, it seemed that he was requesting delegation status for himself as well. So just curious if this is asking for both or just simply for the ED.
I actually asked the councillor the same question before the meeting, and he indicated to me that it was for the ED, not for himself. Okay. Any other questions? Let's call the question. We are voting.
Councillor Armstrong? Motion carries 14-0.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Armstrong, could you let me know, as the Executive Director of the International Ploughman Match here in attendance? Hello. Welcome. What I'd like to do is invite you to come downstairs if you'd like. You can use the podium to present. Unless you're more comfortable presenting from the gallery, you can present using that microphone there in front of you. I'm fine here. Okay, great. So if you want to, please approach the microphone. If you could just introduce yourself, your title, and the floor is then yours.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's certainly a pleasure for me to be here today. My name is Kathy Lasby, and I am the Executive Director of the Ontario Ploughman's Association, which hosts the International Ploughing Match and Rural Expo. We've just finished our 100th event, and we're proud to say that it was another success. And we look forward to the next 100 years. We're always growing and evolving, and we're excited to be part of this presentation today. Joining me today are our director from this area, Brian Lunn. He's with the Ontario Ploughman's Association. Each of our branches have an advisory counselor to our association, and we have Claire Patton here. He represents Middlesex. We also have a very strong veteran here. We have Peter Twinstra. He was chairman of the 2002 ploughing match when it was hosted by Middlesex County in Glencoe. And we also have Ian Brebner, and he too is a strong member of the Middlesex Ploughman's Association. So we're here. We're going to let Councillor Armstrong share the information he's gathered so far, but happy to answer your questions at any time.
Okay, I think what the best approach is, delegation status is an opportunity for you to present to committee, to convey your thoughts about why you're here today, about what your request might be, and then it's also an opportunity for the committee then to ask you questions. Could you do a brief presentation since you have the floor and you have that delegation status? Okay, thank you.
Well, the International Ploughing Match, as I said, is we've had our 100th match, and the way this event differs from any other is that we move around. We're in a different location every year. So we own approximately 15 sea containers that are packed with everything that you can imagine. We have all our own hydro pools, we have our own water lines. It goes right down to the kitchen sink. So that is probably our greatest strength, in that we move around to a different community every year and provide that economic benefit to a community. And I think maybe you have seen the TREAM report that is put out by the Ministry of Tourism, and it's about almost $30,000 is the economic benefit, or $30 million, excuse me, into a community. So we think that it's a wonderful opportunity for us to bring agriculture to a community and to highlight and showcase agriculture, but it's also an opportunity to showcase that community to the rest of the province, and in your case, we'll certainly be looking to our neighbors to the south to participate. It consists of, we obviously have a ploughing competition. We had almost 200 ploughers this year from throughout North America. We have exhibitors also that come from throughout North America, primarily Ontario, but certainly throughout. We have a wonderful sponsorship base. We have a provincial level as well as a localized level of participation, and it's really wonderful to see how that comes together. Our average probably attendance is 85 to 90,000. Our budget for the event is somewhere between $2.5 and $3 million, with a certain 50% of the profits stay in the community to serve. We've given probably at this point millions of dollars to hospitals and to healthcare, but certainly to service clubs. We want them all to be involved. We need about 1,000 to 1,200 volunteers, and we find that that's certainly quite easy to accomplish. We have a very solid committee structure and a structure to show you how we work it with a chair, a vice chair, a board of directors, and then approximately 50 committees. But over the years, obviously, when we've done this 100 times, we've refined it somewhat, and we have a set of guidelines for every committee that we have, and we're constantly updating those and making those available to all our committees. So that's a quick overview, but would certainly be happy to answer any questions you have.
Great, thank you very much. And I think this is a good opportunity, since the delegation is here, for technical questions only. Once we've had our technical questions answered, then we can enter into debate. Councillor Salee, I had you first on the list. Did you have any questions for the presenter?
No.
Okay, Councillor Squire, and I'll start the list.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Two technical questions. I'll ask them together through the chair. First is there a deadline to making a bid? So is this time sensitive? That would be important to me to know that. The second thing is, I know there's an amount of money that must be paid with the when the bid is submitted. Is that refundable if the bid is not successful, or is it kept regardless of the success of the bid?
So to answer your first question, is it time sensitive? Probably it's time sensitive in a different aspect than what you're used to in London City Council terms. We have to do a crop rotation on the land that we use so that we make sure that we have a forage crop on it to maintain the integrity and the sustainability of the farmland. So that's one reason. So usually we work 3 years in advance, so we are a little behind what we normally would be, and the decision is traditionally made at our annual meeting. We have a board meeting later this week, and it would be brought to them and say, are you going to wait till the annual meeting, or can you make that decision now through a poll of our board of director and our advisory councilors? Second question is about the funds. The funds actually do not need to be submitted with the request to, or the bidding request. That comes later at the time when we really get down, and we do have a hosting agreement that spells out what each party is responsible for. In my time, that $100,000 has sometimes been forgiven. Sometimes that's been based on the area that we're in and where the proceeds are going to go to. Most times it's returned.
And just as a follow-up question to the councillor, to be helpful, you said you could make the decision either at a board meeting that's coming up this week or at your AGM. And when is your AGM?
Traditionally, it is made at the AGM with all our members voting on it. But again, because it is somewhat time sensitive, I would suggest to our board that they might want to consider another option for making the decision.
I have councillors Hopkins and Usher. Anyone else?
Thank you for the presentation. I'm curious to know if London was chosen, how the committee goes about getting a site, sort of.
So traditionally what happens is when an area is chosen, and usually this will be new to us to have a city come forward. Usually we're used to counties and the local Ploughman's Association, and the two come together and make a bid. So this is a little different for us. But hopefully you'll get those two partners on side. I think it's important that you bring them all in. But then usually what we do is we would look at 3 different locations within that community to see, and there's certain things we need. We need 3-phase power. We need to make sure that it's easily accessible in roads. Those are the 2 main things, but we would like to, and we want it flat. No ditches, no power lines going through it, those sorts of things. So traditionally we would look at 2 to 3 sites, and then our board of directors would make a decision on the location.
Councillor Rusher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, through you, this is called an international ploughing match. I don't remember this ever held outside of Ontario. Is it times when we have it at other places? I've been following international ploughing match since over 20 years now. So can you answer that?
I'm not that old. But I think years ago that it became international plowing match because of our international competitors and now our international exhibitors. So yeah, you're absolutely correct. It has never been held outside of Ontario, and because it's owned by the Ontario Ploughman's Association, as much as we've been asked to hold it out of Ontario, it doesn't seem feasible.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you again. So we're asking for $100,000 bid, but how much does it cost to do the entire thing, and who bornes all the expenses? I'm talking about throughout the days of the plowing match.
So the $100,000 is primarily used, again, in especially on the county basis when we get our local committees formed. That's kind of the seed money. And as I said, like usually it is returned. Sometimes we've seen half of it returned. Sometimes we've seen all of it returned. A couple of times we've seen it all forgiven, and that money went really back into the community to charitable organizations. The budget is somewhere between $2.5 and $3 million. So that is the revenue that's needed comes from basically 3 different sources, and that is exhibitor revenue, attendance, we charge at the gate, as well as sponsors and government grants.
I got two more quick questions. I'll do one first. With respect to the land, how is the land garnered? We've heard that our mover, councillor, has went out and garnered 500 acres of land, but I understand you need 1,000 acres. Who guarantees that those land will be utilized and will be safe to the farmers?
So that's absolutely how we start out in the process. A local committee to look for the land is they will go out and visit with farmers and see if they are willing to participate. We're all farmers ourselves, so we make sure that we have a commitment to our host farmers that that land is returned to exactly the way we found it. That's really, really important to us, and that's all spelled out in a lease agreement. In terms of the time that we start to use the land and when we finish. Like the last thing that's going on this week in Huron County is we have a special nail picker, and it goes up and down the entire site and gathers any nails that might have been left. So we're really conscientious, I think, in terms of returning that land to the way we found it. That's really important to us.
My last question is much easier. My understanding is that the community is, like you said, generally not a municipality. And one of my concerns is the municipality. So having the land within the municipality, I'm not so sure that we have that amount of land, but is it your responsibility to speak to the adjoining municipalities or counties about being a partner in this?
I would certainly think that's something we could do together, absolutely. And just so you know, we have an RV park, and I forgot to touch on that. We have about 1,000 RVs. We have 1,096 this year. So that takes about 100 acres of land. Our tented city, where all our exhibitors are, that's another 100 acres. We need 300 acres for parking, 300 acres for plowing, and we'd like to have another 200 acres sort of in reserve in case that land is, if we have bad weather, we're obviously not going to reuse some of that land.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Usher, Councillor Ridley, Zafman, and Armstrong.
Thank you. I thought perhaps the international came from the International Harvester, and that's where the plowing match. My question was around the sites. So London is something that the committee is interested in. Which other sites or municipalities or counties are you looking at? Are you able to share that at this time?
No, I can't really share that. Our board of directors tends to work on that as opposed to the staff, but I do know that there was one location in Eastern Ontario that certainly was being considered.
Thank you. And then my other question is in regards to some of our community organizations which may be valuable partners. And I'm thinking specifically of the Western Fair District and Tourism London. Have you worked with them or approached them at all yet?
No, we have not, except we are already partners with Western Fair. We exhibit at the farm show. Their agricultural manager is also a good personal friend of mine, so we do a lot of things in conjunction with one another.
I think that's all of my technical questions, and then I'll wait for Councillor Usher's comments and further debate. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Councillor Zafman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I was trying to find some information relevant to bidding or putting in an application for bidding on the plowing match through the website. I couldn't really find much information beyond what Councillor Armstrong has provided to us here today. So beyond the $100,000 fee, are there other requirements to put in a bid or application?
No, certainly not to put in the bid. There are some certainly in-kind support we would be turning to you, and one of the things that I always think of that come from either the lower tier municipalities or the county are things like putting up snow fence. That's really helpful to us. I forget how many kilometers of snow fence we actually put in, but that's to protect the site and to just make it contained. Things like putting in culverts for extra entrances, those sorts of in-kind things that we really depend on the municipality to help us with.
Thank you, and through the chair again, just a quick question. Obviously, as you mentioned, this might be the first city that you've had an application from. I think I was looking at that, the first one, or one of the first was in Toronto about 100 years ago or so.
That's correct.
But my curiosity was, obviously, these have been in sort of smaller municipalities or county areas. I'm curious, is there any discussion around having a city take this on versus continuing this tradition of having it in a smaller municipality or county?
I wouldn't say that conversation has happened yet. That would be something when you put forward your formal bid. Like I guess right now we're hearing bits, but until your formal bid comes, we really haven't had a discussion about it. And you're absolutely correct. The first plowing match was held in 1913 in what was York County, but it is now the location of Sunnybrook Hospital in downtown Toronto. So the first 2 years were held in what is now downtown Toronto.
Very interesting. Councillor Zaveman, all set? Councillor Armstrong, anyone else on questions?
Well, my first question would be, in 1924, which city in Ontario hosted this event?
Help.
London, Ontario. Can you not?
What's your second question?
That's why I've just wanted to ask. I guess the thing is timing is important, and as I heard earlier, at this point, I understood that there was others who had some interest in the 2020. As of today, is London the only one that's on the track ready to race?
I don't know that for sure, again, because that's something from our board of directors. If it was this time next week, I would be able to answer that, but I don't know what's coming from our directors.
Okay, I think that covers it, Your Worship, for now. Obviously, I'll have an opportunity to speak to this further in a few minutes. Thank you.
Okay, we'll enter then into debate unless there are any other questions. I've got a quick one. Was anyone involved in the international plowing match that was held in Oxford County circa around 1980? 1, 2, 3? Anyway, it was fabulous.
We think all of them are fabulous. We're really thrilled with the opportunity to showcase a community as well as to give back to a community at the same time, and we think that's a pretty unique event to be able to do that.
Yeah, it was right outside of Woodstock, Ontario. It was great show. I'm going to go to Councillor Salee and looking for other speakers as we enter into debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the members of the public who came out in regards to this. Much appreciated. For me, I won't be supporting this request. It doesn't, to me, seem like the best thing for London at this time. I can appreciate a number of people who have expressed some interest in this, but based on what I've heard already from initial comments in the community and just kind of the process of how this is all kind of happening. I'll give you an example. For example, I was always a big supporter of the Junos coming to London, but I didn't come right here to City Council and say, this is how I want to do it. There was a process in place that fell within the mandate of London Tourism, and they had a specific way of doing things because they have the expertise and the staff involved to be able to speak to this. So while I was reviewing the information that came forward, I did see a letter from Tourism London, and I asked Mr. John Winston, who's also here today, for clarification, because how I read it initially was it sounded as if, or how some people saw it as if it was a letter of support, but I clarified with him and I asked him to be explicitly clear, and I got a response from him, and I'll read it as such. My letter does not endorse the plowing match. The plowing match has been a long-standing icon of rural Ontario. Tourism London commends your efforts to explore tourism. London would help promote and capitalize upon any tourism benefits. The terms of reference request counties, regions, or districts to apply, not cities. Require 750 to 1,000 contiguous acres of flat stubbled grass surface with no wet spots, cannot be framed for 2 years, where in East London will you find it. City of London has no expertise in rural agriculture matters or competence in bidding, managing, and or organizing an event of this magnitude. It required the hiring of 3 to 5 people on a full-time basis at approximately $200,000 a year to hire professionals. Who is the guarantor if the event loses money? Who benefits if the event makes money? What are the kinds of costs to the city? Staff time, security, policing, traffic control, road diversions, etc. This event belongs in rural Ontario, not a large urban center where the vast majority of visitors are day trippers and the overnighters stay in the RV park provided by the association managing the event. Traditionally, the local planning associations bid for this event, not municipalities. No matter who you talk to who has been involved, this is a very complex, time-consuming, gut-wrenching, full-time commitment that is done once, never again experience. So, I mean, I'm listening from the experts. Tourism London has a track record of knowing what they're talking about when it comes to these kind of things. I've always been passionate about bringing more kind of events to our city, But even when I had some ideas, sometimes it doesn't make sense. I would love if the Olympics would come to London, Ontario, but I just don't think we can do it, and I don't think it makes sense for London. So with that, I'll listen to my colleagues, but I hope you all defeat this, and I appreciate the members from the public for coming again. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And again, the delegation is available to answer any questions if members have them. I'm not going to limit this just to debate if you have questions. I have Deputy Mayor Hubert, I have Councillor Ridley, and I'm sorry I missed if anyone, Councillor Turner. Sorry, Councillor Turner, I missed you before. Deputy Mayor Hubert?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to commend my colleague, Councillor Armstrong, for his work on this. I didn't know that he was as passionate about plowing matches and agriculture until quite recently, and so I think that's terrific. And a lot of people don't know what that a significant portion of the City of London is agricultural. And if you looked at our zoning, a good chunk of it is agricultural. However, Mayor, you know, I appreciate the delegation, and I am a loyal Aggie. I am a University of Guelph grad, so I got to stick with the Aggies a little bit over there. But the issue I have here is I have more questions, and they're not questions that I think we should deal with at committee, Mr. Mayor. I've got more questions than I have answers. No disrespect to Councillor Armstrong or to our presenters. So, Mr. Mayor, I think, you know, before we all furrow our brows for hours here, and before we plow through, I would like to move a referral. I got one more, okay? That's two, three I'm out, so I'll hold there. That I'm going to move a referral, and I've asked the clerk to prepare a motion that you can all look at. And I understand that this is timely and there's some time sensitivities, but we need to make the best decision for the City of London as a whole. And so the motion will be as follows. I'll read it just so folks can listen to it and that don't have it in front of them. That the communication dated October 6, 2017 from Councillor Bill Armstrong and Mayor Matt Brown with respect to a potential bid to host the 2020 International Plowing Match be referred to Civic Administration to review and report back on the specifics of the bid criteria, including to what extent, if any, the city would be expected to provide financial or other resources in connection with the event, should it be the successful bidder. So, as is always our case here, we want to see a business plan, or at least a work plan. And how does it fit in with our strategic plan? How does it fit into our 4-year budget? What staffing resources will it take? Do we need to hire staff? And I don't have those details, and I don't want to try and flesh them out with a series of 30 questions on the floor, Mr. Mayor. So I'll move that referral. I think staff, you know, I know Councillor Armstrong's done a great deal of work, and I think the Ploughman Plowing Association will be very helpful to that. And so that we flesh that out and bring it back to council in a timely manner. So that will be my referral at this point.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I see a seconder in Councillor Usher. Did you want me to add you to the speakers list as well, Councillor Usher? Okay. On the speakers list at this point, we have a referral. It's been moved and seconded. I have Councillor Ridley, Turner, Zafman, Armstrong, Usher. Councillor Ridley.
Thank you, Chair. I think receiving a referral as the first comment in debate threw me a little bit off because I thought there'd be a bit more opportunity to debate this and debate some of the points or concerns and whatnot. I had actually forwarded an amendment to the clerk earlier that I wish I had had the opportunity to get on the floor and raise with my colleagues, as I think it would address some of the issues that are up for referral right now. I think that I'm going to vote against referral because I would like to work with the motion that's in front of us. I think that there's an opportunity to, and I hear what the councillor is saying, and that's what I think some of the amendments need to happen. I think what we need to do at this point is really confirm with the Ploughman's Association an expression of interest and give our staff some direction to work with them. What I heard was certainly there are costs, but as an association and organization, those costs are borne amongst themselves. They are ready and prepared. What they're looking for support on is things like snow fencing, maybe some security. And I think that it's prudent to get that information back before we make a final decision. But I think what we can do is express to the association that London is interested in this, and we would like some more details if the board agrees that London would be a good location. I'm seeing nods from the gallery that that's perhaps what they're looking for. So I think I would encourage people to vote against the referral, and let's put a motion on the floor that directs our staff to express interest and come back to us with a contract should the board be interested in moving forward, that we could then vote on and make a decision on when we have all those details. I recognize that this is a bit of an unorthodox way that this has come to us, but I think we can work with it. I think that London does have a lot of rural, and surprisingly, even amongst urban folks, there's a lot of rural people there. You just asked my neighbor about the tractor she found in my garage when I moved in, which wasn't international at that time. And I think there is a lot of interest, and I think that there are good organizations within the city that would be good partners that could collaborate on this. So perhaps we could vote down the referral and talk about a way that we could move this forward to get the details that we need to get.
Thank you, Councillor. I have Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thanks to Councillor Ridley. I appreciate where she's coming from on this. I agree. I think this is something worth considering and at least expressing our support in principle to the concept. Thanks to Councillor Armstrong for doing a lot of the legwork on this. I have to say at the beginning I was kind of skeptical about this this concept, and I am. I mean, back when we were talking about the Junos, I have some reservations on the way we're doing these kind of things just on the fly, right? I really want to go back to the idea that perhaps we have a reserve for bids or something like that, where we have a sense of what's going to happen, and because these opportunities come up rather quickly sometimes, and it leaves us kind of scrambling for source of financing, which actually, if I might take a second here and through you, Your Worship, could I ask if a source of financing had been identified?
Ms. Provon, source of financing, has it been identified?
Through the chair, similar to how we had proceeded with the Junos bid, we are unable to use the Economic Development Reserve Fund, which would have been obviously our first choice. But what that would leave us next is obviously the Operating Budget Contingency Reserve Fund that we would draw from there, as we don't have a current budget for this at this time.
Thank you. So that one does give me a little discomfort, I guess, but we also have a budget update coming up very shortly, and there might be an opportunity in there to have that discussion. In the background information about 39,784 acres of registered farmland in the city. Our total area is 103,925, so that's around 38% of our land in the City of London is agricultural. And it's something we don't talk about a lot. And so when we take a look at some of the conflicts we have as an urban municipality, but we're really an urban-rural municipality, and we don't spend enough time focusing on our rural component. And that's led to conflicts, such as we've seen with whether it's Shaver Broccoli recently, whether we talk about Glanworth, or adjacent rural constituent municipalities within the City of London. I think this is a good opportunity to start showcasing that. The second part, and as I was thinking about this, was our opportunity to start our really talking about our collaboration with our neighbors. The opportunity in the east side of London, which is probably why Argyle has come to the table with a portion of the seed money here. If we start looking a little east and look at Thames Centre and opportunities like that, I think there's quite a bit of potential here, and I do see kind of that paradox of the City of London holding urban or a rural competition. But I think there is some good synergies here, and I'd really like us to not just throw the idea away right away. I'd like us to explore it as best we can. I think what Councillor Ridley has suggested strikes the right notes on that, allows us to get there, allows us to provide an expression of interest, go back, identify what the commitment resource requirements are from us, and what the source of financing associated with that might be, and how it might all work out. But I think a lot of work has been started. I'd like to see that continue out a little bit further.
Councillor Zafman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could you put me back on if there is a main motion to be discussed? I'll be discussing that, not the referral.
Thank you. I will put you back on for the main motion. Councillor Armstrong, Usher, Salee, Park, Hopkins.
Well, thank you, Worship. Your Worship, first of all, I'll be supporting, I won't be supporting the referral motion. I think Councillor Wrigley has come up with a very good plan, and I think if we work together on coming up with the appropriate motion, I think she's come up with the appropriate motion. I can support that, and I think this will be it. I just would like to see that we make sure we're clear that we are looking for the partnership or participation in the Middlesex Ploughman's Association in this bid, in this endeavor, that it's very clear that we hope they will be a full partner. And again, Your Worship, a couple points. I know that you had taken the time to talk with some other elected officials in the county, and I just wanted to ask you, there's not a letter here, but I wanted to ask you what feedback through you to you did you get from the county as far as their support for us looking into this?
Thank you, Councillor. I had a very good conversation, actually a couple of conversations with Mayor Maudsley a few weeks ago. Mayor Maudsley, I believe, contacted the warden, Don Chipway, and they had a discussion. The mayor indicated, being very supportive of London's bid, not offended by the bid in any way, but also apprehensive about what kind of work might be involved in hosting, and wasn't interested in bringing something like this forward through his local government to have discussions about participating as a partner, but being very supportive as our partner, Middlesex County. And so he was speaking specifically for Thames Centre, but he had conversations with some other folks as well.
So supportive, but maybe not at this point, wanting to be full partner, but supportive. And I think that's a good starting point. And as this develops and goes further, there's always an opportunity for them to re-examine their level of participation. In any level of participation, whether it's from government, from organizations, from the general public, will be welcome in this sort of event, because it is truly a regional event that could happen here in London, in the county of Middlesex. So I certainly welcome further inquiries and discussions with them. But to be clear, I think the Ploughman's Association should be included in this, and it's very clear because they do have a meeting coming and they will have to make a decision. And quite frankly, we need their expertise to be involved in this event, or, they have probably in this room 100 years of expertise right now. So I'd like to see something in there to make that clear, that invite, and we hope that their board will consider involvement here. I wanted to point out a couple things. First of all, I wanted to address the issue of Tourism London. I did meet with Tourism London. In fact, the manager, executive director, about this opportunity. It was the first meeting I had, basically, on this issue, and I was clear that, and if someone wants to correct me on this, feel free. It was clear that they were busy with these other bids, like the Juno, etc. That they felt that this was not something that they could do involved with at at the time when I talked to them. And so the thing is, that's why I saw this opportunity and felt that it should be brought to council, and this is the best way I felt it, the best approach. So that's how this all happened. There has been an outreach to everybody on this, as you can see. We have over 20 letters of support from organizations, et cetera, and businesses, et cetera, not just in London, but outside of London, in Thames Centre even. So there has been a lot of work done on reaching out and trying to involve everybody and get everyone excited about this opportunity. So I just want to make that clear that no one was, if Tourism London wanted to be involved and take the lead on this, I would have certainly been glad to see that happen. But again, my responsibility is if whether there's an opportunity here that would benefit this municipality, it was important for me to bring it in front of you. And I believe that this is an opportunity. Well, I guess it might be a lifetime since it was 1924 that we had our last opportunity at this. So it's been everywhere around here, but it has been in London Middlesex. And so I really appreciate Councillor Wrigley's willingness and others to work on this motion and try to make this work. So thanks again. I won't be supporting the motion for referral.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. I can't help but see Mr. Winston at the microphone. Mr. Winston, we're at committee. You don't have delegation status, but I think you might be able to add something to our debate. And so I'm going to allow you to speak briefly. Please don't enter into the debate. Please just provide any kind of information you can that might help us with our decision.
What I'd like to point out to members of the committee is that in the discussions we had with the councillor, we made it very clear, excuse me, that is not a core, agriculture is not a core competency that we have. And we made it also very clear that it is imperative that if it's going to go forward, it needs agricultural expertise. And to suggest that referring it back to administration, I guess you have to ask one fundamental question: is who is going to do it? And I don't know of any division or department in this organization that has the capacity or the capability of doing it. It's a very complex, very detailed, and extraordinarily intensive process. And the involvement takes a lot of time and effort to do. I had significant discussions with people who've been involved. This is not an easy task, but it needs the appropriate expertise. And I clearly can tell you we don't have that, and I don't think that that this administration has that as well. So how you go about that is your decision. But, you know, the fundamental key to all of this is whether Middlesex County or one of the counties is prepared to be involved and significantly engaged to ensure that it's done in an appropriate fashion.
Thank you, Mr. Winston. On the speakers list, I have Councillors Usher, Salee, Park, Hopkins, Van Holst, and Squire.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And let me first of all say that I really appreciate the effort that Councillor Armstrong has made in this regard. I second this motion, but I want you to know that I second it for a specific reason. I'll talk about that in a minute. But I do get excited when something like this, when the potential of something like this comes to London, or it's capable of coming to London. And there's my dilemma. I don't know if it's capable of coming to London because I don't know if we are capable of handling it yet. And that's the reason why I second the motion, because I believe that we need somebody to look at this very, very carefully and tell us what are the repercussions, exactly what the motion says. The review and report back specifics of the bid criteria, including what extent, if any, the city would be expected to provide financial and other resources in connection with this event. And that's what we need before we get into this debate too far or before we come to any final decisions. I look at this and like what the gentleman just said, Mr. our Director of Tourism, I don't think that we in London alone can do something like this. And I'm hopeful that what the staff would recommend to us would be something to the effect of that we go outside and we form more of a regional alliance with the county and others, because I think that that's where the expertise is going to come from if we go through with this. I think we've got to go outside of our forte for this. And I think we really, really need the support of the county. I'm not convinced that when I read all these letters, I don't see an excitement in the letters. I don't see a positive things in the letter. I see diplomacy in the letter, not wanting to say no, but wanting to encourage us that yes, if we as a city wants to go this way, then we will help and support it in every way possible. But I don't see anybody saying like the way I felt about it. Yeah, let's do it. We can do it. I didn't read that in any of the letters. So I think that what we're talking about here with respect to, we got confirmation from this one and support from this one. I think it's more than meet the eyes. So, Mr. Chair, I do believe that the best thing for us to do is to go ahead and send this off to staff without staff spending too much time because they don't have the expertise either, and not belittling staff in any way. But I think that they really need to look at this and tell us what is involved with this, what we're getting ourselves into, and how we need to be able to coordinate this with other alliances such as the county and the region. And I don't expect that staff to sit here to tell us that today. I think that they need to look at this thoroughly, and they may even have to go outside and ask some advice. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Rusher. Councillor Salee, Park, Hopkins, Van Holt, Squire, Huber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and if I may, I wanted to ask a question to the city manager, just to kind of get an understanding, and through you to the city manager. If there was a report back, I mean, how would you go about approaching this? I know that's a little preliminary to ask, but it just seems as if, to me, I don't think you guys are able to do this. I know you guys could do a million other great things. Tourism London this is their mandate. They're saying they can't do this. So I'm just wondering, are we gonna go out to consultants, and is that gonna cost us money? And I guess if you are able to give us any initial feedback on this, based on what you know about the city being able to, be a host city for an event of this nature.
Through the chair, this is a very difficult area for me to comment on. There is no expertise in the city administration with doing this. I mean, Ms. Datas-Bear, I think her father was involved in a ploughing match once. I could assign her to it, as was Miss Saunders. I think she was involved in one once, but we won't go down those roads. So there is a lot involved, and I have been involved in actual games committees way back in past lives. And so one of the things that stuck out to me was that there is a hosting agreement. I don't know who the hosting agreement is between. That leads me to believe that there's a guarantor involved. So those are kinds of questions that I'd be asking. How much you guaranteeing? I just pulled up an article from Huron County where the total cost for Huron County was around $642,000, and I haven't seen a breakdown. That's one article for the, I think it said the 2017 plough match. So there's a lot of areas we've got to look at. Then you've got to look at where we are with our strategic plan and all the work that's already been assigned. So something's going to give. We're going to have to drop something off the strategic plan in order to be able to accommodate this. I have talked briefly just to gain some experience with somebody who was involved in it before, and they indicated that there is a couple of years' effort involved. There were about 4 people that they had to have on, not necessarily all full-time, but there was a significant staff effort involved in it. So that was just their experience. So it would take a little bit for us to go around and maybe talk to some people to find out what all the different factors were. Again, what Mr. Winston's told you is they are the experts in submitting bids. We're not, from a staff perspective. We have, from time to time, been involved, but there would be a high degree of effort even in just responding to your referral back, should that remain.
And Mr. Chair, through you, I guess, I don't know what else my colleagues need to hear as far as being convinced that I don't even think we should pursue getting any information on this. I appreciate Councillor Hubert's efforts because I know he was just trying to get some information, but it sounds like as if the civic administration is saying this is going to take potentially years. Something on the strategic plan is going to have to give. I regularly hear when sometimes I try to bring things up to get information where people say there's only, to me, from their, in their position, they'll say to me, staff don't have unlimited amount of resources and time and effort. And I think with this one thing, it really seems exploratory. I mean, I don't hear anyone from the stakeholders that I've spoken to saying, this is what we should do, this is great for London, let's do this. I get that it's great for maybe other communities, but it doesn't work for us. I don't think it's going to be successful. And I know I heard some comments about other councillors and other wardens and mayors from other cities, but I know, for example, what I heard from one city councillor, just creeping on Twitter real quick, in response to someone else's tweet where the original tweet read, agreed, London should focus on being a city, not try to take rural tourism away from rural, right? And this was to Kelly Elliott, the councillor, and she responded, totally agree. The International can't forget what the M stands for, is a huge boost for our rural areas to promote Ontario and Canada, feature local farmers, and should focus elsewhere. London should focus elsewhere. So this is our counterparts in Thames Centre, and I'm sure maybe others also feel the same as well. So I mean, colleagues, the evidence is before you. Civic administration seems to be reluctant from my perspective. Tourism London has made it clear. Some of our councillors in other cities have expressed concerns. Your two and only tourism reps that you've appointed have been very hesitant on this and have tried to refer it. So, I mean, I hope you guys listen to us to some extent because you guys trusted us to be your tourism reps. So I'll leave it at that. Let's not waste staff's time. Let's just end this and, let the motion go.
Thank you, Councillor Park.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I remember my granddad talking about this, the plowing matches, and it was when Granddad would really cut loose. He would wear his clean hat. It was really good. My question through the chair at this time to the executive director, the upcoming board meeting, is that like the be-all, end-all that all your applications have to be in? Okay. So recognizing the shaking of head, I'm going to support the referral at this time. I think that we've all articulated quite well, except myself, this is my first time speaking, that there's just a lot of questions but not enough information to make a good decision on this. I think that the points that Councillor Ridley made about giving our nod of maybe we'll go down this path, I think we've done that through this conversation and recognizing that the folks from the Ontario Ploughman's Association are here. I think that speaks in a way that they can have enough context at their board meeting to say perhaps London will go down this path going forward. So I think there's still a lot of more information to gather, and I really think that this would be a great opportunity, as Councillor Usher had said, to make a more regional approach on this. I don't think that the City of London can go this alone at this point.
Councillor Hopkins.
Thank you, and I will not be supporting the referral back. I think it's important that we, first of all, acknowledge the work that the councillor has done to date. I think he's put in a lot of work, and I really appreciate Councillor Ridley's motion supporting the intent of interest. I think there's nothing wrong with doing that. Of course, we need more information. Of course, this could be a great opportunity to work with our rural neighbors and develop those partnerships that are important. I hear what staff is saying about the concerns of not having that expertise, but that may follow as we continue looking into finding partners to work on this match. But I think it is important to at least show interest. The city is interested. And speaking as councillor of Ward 9, where half of my ward is agricultural, and I hear often from the agricultural community is that we do not support the agricultural community enough. And this is a step forward in doing that. And I will not be supporting the referral back because I think the intent is there, the interest is there, and further information should be given back to us to see if we can put on a great show with our community partners. So I will not be referring this back.
Councillor Van Holst.
Thank you very much. Well, this is very interesting, in a way appropriate since we're coming out with an urban agriculture policy that's going to be passed very soon. That we're bringing urban and agriculture together. I'm a little confused about the degree of expertise that's required. The Glencoe and St. Thomas have done this. I don't know if cities like that can do it. I don't know why London wouldn't be able to do something like this. Maybe a question I could have through you to our guests is, there's a Middlesex Ploughman's Association. What can they bring us if we need help? What can they supply that?
Yes, I would say absolutely they can supply that. Many of those have been involved in 2002 when Middlesex County hosted it. We have our overall chair here. We've never found expertise to be a problem. It's amazing, and perhaps it's the farming attitude, but I think it applies to city people as well. When there's a job to be done, we step forward and do it. So I mentioned earlier, we have guidelines for every committee that we have. I would say 97% or more of our people that were involved in last year's plowing match in Huron County were volunteers. Very, very few staff people. We have a provincial office staff of 4, and this week I'm going to be working on 4 different plowing matches. So that's just the nature of what we do. We have summer students on a local level, but basically we have that expertise. We feel that comes forward in any location that we're in.
Okay, thank you. And you talked about many volunteers. How many staff members from a municipality of whatever tier are generally working with you when this is coming together? And maybe you can also answer how you go about getting the volunteers that you do, because it's quite a number.
So first of all, there's actually 2 parts to the involvement of a municipality, whether it's a county or whether it's a city. And the one part is certainly the planning, and very, very few municipal employees are involved in that. The second part is the display that the county or the city or the region would actually put on the site. And that tends to be a bigger job. It can be as big and as fancy as you choose to make it, or it can be as simple as you choose to make it. However you want to display your area, I encourage simple. I think that's really good. We've had some major landscaping done at our events, not really necessary, but that's your choice. So that's a big component of what the host community does. So that's when staff gets more involved than the actual putting up the snow fence.
Okay, thank you. And you were going to tell me how you go about gathering the volunteers. Is that going to be harder in a place like London, where we maybe have more city slickers than you'd be used to?
I think it will be different in a city than it will be out in the country. And I think that in the country, word of mouth works well. Everybody knows the plowing match and knows that it's about giving back to your community more than it is about the event. Because as I mentioned earlier, the hosting agreement that we have, and that's between the local organizing committee and the Ontario Ploughman's Association, but the buck stops with the Ploughman's Association in terms of financial responsibility. Half of that money goes back, half of the profits goes back right into your community. So I think people are really interested in giving back, so are pleased to step forward. And that's where the expertise comes. It's amazing how many people from their former walks of life are willing to step forward and participate in the plowing match.
Thank you. It seems like we may be less interested in how much money goes to the community as we are in the possibility of losing money. Does that happen for communities?
I've just finished my 15th plowing match working with the Ploughman's Association, and we have not lost any money. The probably the most challenging match we've dealt with financially in the last 25 years was the week after 9/11, and we hosted the match in just outside of Ottawa. So yes, it was challenging, but they still did not. It was not significant, and it was not something that we couldn't quickly recuperate from. So again, in the hosting agreement, it says that the final financial responsibility rests with the Ontario Ploughman's Association, not the host municipality. And I guess, can I just add there, the $100,000 does not go with the bid. It does not come until later, and it does not necessarily need to come in one lump sum. In fact, I think from our association standpoint, we prefer that it didn't.
Okay, and thank you. Perhaps one final question through the mayor. We seem to be a little nervous about a plowing match in an urban center. Why aren't you nervous about this?
I'm an optimist. I think it's a new opportunity. I think that as farmers, and that's where I'm going home to tonight. We want to give our message to city people. We want you to know where your food comes from. You know, and we have that slogan, Farmers Feed Cities. Well, we just want to prove to you that it's really important that we become partners in all of this. So I think it's a really unique opportunity for the city and for our event. And we already know that you know, Western Fair District is still very successful in the center of the city, and we think we can build on that.
Thank you.
Councillor Hopkins. Councillor Squire.
I'm slightly older, I think.
We know.
I'm older, I said. I think this is, through you, Mr. Chair, I just find this a very peculiar way to try to get to a decision on whether we're going to host a plowing match or not. I would have hoped we would have had more in-depth analysis by staff looking at the different options, and we would actually have something here. My process on this has been, it's come to us, a bunch of different people have called me and said, it's great, it's bad, it's terrible, it's medium, and I'm supposed to make a decision today. So I hope the people that are here understand that. I don't come from a rural background. My ward is not a rural ward. But I think the one thing I think we should be careful of, I don't think we should overstate this lack of expertise. The way people obtain expertise is the staff from the city, who are pretty smart people, go to meet with the people who have expertise in this area, garner information, and then come back with a report. I don't think it's an obstacle to say, well, we don't have a agricultural plowing match expert on staff, so we can't consider this. I think that's overstating it in the extreme. So I'm a little surprised at that staff would be reticent about saying, hey, we'll take this on and come back to you with something. I'm disappointed in that. That being said, I don't see how anyone can possibly make a decision today. I certainly can't. And I think what we're going to do is probably spend another hour debating this, and then we're going to debate a motion. And I think the end result's going to be the same. It's going to go back, we're going to get a report back, and it's going to tell us things, and we're going to have to make a decision. So again, we can over-govern this today, or we can send it back to staff, hope staff, and I trust staff will be able to get the information and go ahead from there. So I'm going to support the referral, and it depends what the next motion says. I'm very hesitant to someone, if the motion says, we agree with this in principle, or we've decided we'd really like to do this. I'm not at that stage yet, and I would be surprised if anyone else is, but this council does not surprise me when it comes to enthusiasm to take on events that we haven't necessarily studied.
Deputy Mayor Hubert.
Well, thank you. This has been an interesting conversation, and let me clarify that the intent of the referral back, if I wanted to vote this down, I just vote it down. The referral back is an expression of interest. I mean, I don't know what else it would be, but it's expressing interest to the point that we want to invest time, energy, and staffing resources in order to bring forward information so council can wrap their arms around it. And there's been a lot of back and forth and a lot of conversation around that. So if my colleague wanted to add some friendly language to it, I'd be open to that. If there's certain pieces that she, you know, I'm referring to Councillor Ridley because she articulated some things that she'd like added, that would be one thing, but it's still got to go back to staff. And I don't want us to get that this is an expression of commitment. it's an expression of interest, and that's the intent of the referral. It didn't say expression of interest, because the request was for a bid, not for EOI, and the EOI is different. So, they're looking for a bid. I would like the referral, the intent of the referral is to refer it back to get the information so that there can be a solid bid package put together. So that's the intent. I think the expression of interest could be a letter that says we're interested, but if there's some language that I can work with, I'm happy to do that as the mover of the referral. But the intent is essentially the same, because I think there's a number of us that just aren't comfortable with the level of what we have in front of us.
Okay, thank you for those comments. What I'm going to suggest that you do is take a look on screen, on Linda's screen, at the language that, pardon me, the councillor was going to bring forward for a motion. I think there might be some convergence there, and we've got about 20 minutes because I've got 4 more speakers for us to make that decision, so I'm going to go to Councillor Morgan at this time.
Oh, great. I'll debate the motion that I don't know what it's going to be yet. So let me just make a few comments then, and then I'll weigh in on the current one, and I'll see what you change it into, and I'll weigh in on that if I need to. So I am council's representative on the Western Fair Association, which I love how you're talking about the importance of it and the good work that we do with hosting the farm show, which is one of the largest outside of Eastern Canada. And there certainly is expertise in the city. Lots of people who know lots about agriculture and organizations that are very passionate about achieving what you've said, and that is talking to people in urban areas about agriculture and the importance it has to cities. So I see potential in what's being discussed. Just to correct my colleague who brought forward the motion, it was actually 1928 on Carmichael Brothers Farms in London when it was last hosted, not 1924. Yeah, that's the trivia of the day. Where I have some caution here is the rush for the 2020 International Plowing Match bid. And I think one of the questions was asked was, when do you have to make this decision? Is there any urgency? And every part of the urgent component of that question was related to I think, the timing for the 2020 bid. And so what I would prefer we do is take the time to thoroughly investigate this, make sure we get it right, make sure it does fit for London, make sure that those in tourism and agriculture weigh in on it, ensure that our regional partners are supportive and not taking issue with our hosting, and try to do something a little more in line with our strategic plan, and that is be a regional leader and be collaborative on such an endeavor. And so because of that, I wouldn't necessarily support the current iteration of the motion, because I don't think we need to tie ourselves to 2020. I think we can investigate it. If 2021 and 2022 is better, then we can do this in a well thought out way with much more regional support and a little more time. And I think that the motion needs to reflect that. As it reads now, and I know it's being changed, it's really a report back on that specific bid and to extent to their criteria, what the city would be expected to provide financial or resources or otherwise. And there's probably more of a consolidation of this information and outreach to our regional partners, and some thoughtfulness about when we would want to make this timing, both with our multi-year budget cycle, should we have to support it budget-wise, with our ability for staff to free up those resources from a strategic planning perspective, and with a little more comfort from my perspective on how the partners have been engaged. I appreciate the letters of support. The letters of support have no detail, and I think that there's probably some level of conversation that we can have. So if the direction changes and leans in towards that, then that's something I would be supportive of. If it's going to stick with 2020 in a much more stringent way, I'm not going to be supporting that, and I'm not going to be supporting the main motion if it stays that way. But I would support something more along the lines of what I was talking about with not rushing this, and maybe thinking a little forward and engaging with our partners in a way that doesn't seem as chaotic as I think this debate has.
Okay, Councillor Cassidy, Armstrong, and Usher.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I was going to vote against the referral, but I'm not sure if Councillor Ridley is now working with Deputy Mayor Hubert. new wording for his referral, or?
It's my understanding that, that the wording that Councillor Ridley has brought forward is not acceptable to Councillor Hubert, so if half of it is, half of it isn't. So the referral stands.
Okay, so I won't, I don't support the referral. And I didn't necessarily support the motion that was in the letter that we received. I didn't necessarily support how it was written and those details, but I did like where Councillor Ridley was going. And I'm of the same mind as Councillor Turner. I think this is an opportunity to show that there's room for this in London, and we can show that we're about more than just downtown. Downtown is hugely important to London, but we're more than just downtown. And this is a way to showcase that. We can show that we value our agricultural sector and our rural areas of the city. As Councillor Turner pointed out, over a third of the city is rural. Our history is rural. Ward 5 used to be rural. It's not so much anymore. And it's an important part of London. We have probably Ontario's biggest agricultural fair. Do they still consider the X in Toronto an agricultural fair? If outside of the X, like we're one of the biggest agricultural fairs in our urban center. And again, the whole local food movement, the whole idea of getting the ingredients for your diet within your local radius, all that is really important. Again, we have so much cooperation with the county. There's London Middlesex Health Unit, the health board on which I sit, and Councillor Helmer is the chair. We have at least 2 farmers that sit on the board with us from Middlesex County. Our London Middlesex Housing Corporation, all of these different things, EMS, this is all our regional cooperation, and this is one more aspect of that. I definitely see the room for broader county involvement, whether they want to identify themselves as an actual partner in this. That's something that we could explore further. And as far as the expertise goes, do we have the expertise? I'm pretty sure we've never bid on the Junos before. And I'm pretty sure before we had the Country Music Week and Country Music Awards, London never bid on that before either. There's a first time for everything. There's a first time for ranked ballots in the country, and we're going to be doing that too. So I don't think we should be afraid of that. And Councillor Squire pointed out quite rightly that the expertise exists in our region, and we will tap into that expertise. We have an agricultural advisory committee, I believe. Mr. Tweinstra, is that your son that sits on that? Steve, is Steve your son? Yeah, I met him. I toured his farming operation. So it's an important part of London. And I think this gives us an opportunity to showcase that. We are constantly telling investors in the agri-food business, in the food processing business that are looking at London as a possible place to invest. We say, you know what? We are smack dab in the middle of some of the best prime real estate or agricultural land in the country. And so set up your food processing business here because you can source all of your ingredients locally, and it's high quality ingredients because of the value of our agricultural land. So I'm supportive of this. I'm supportive of hearing what motion Councillor Ridley is, or amendment, what she's going to propose, and I will vote against the referral.
Okay. So we know what we're talking about. I've heard from the mover of the motion that he has an amended version. It's an amalgamation, I think, of Councillor Ridley's ideas and the idea that he brought forward. So is that coming up on screen then now? And just to help the flow of conversation as we maybe work towards convergence, I am going to hand things over to Deputy Mayor Hubert to explain the changes. Or is it your change? Okay, I'll hand things over to Councillor Ridley then, who's come up with an amended version that might be an area of convergence for us. Councillor Ridley?
I think the deputy mayor and I may need a few minutes to decide who's allowed to speak or whose turn it is to speak. However, I took the microphone, so I'm taking control. The counselor had the opportunity to put a referral on the floor, which was thoroughly debated, and I put forward an alternate motion, which he did amend, but it was based off my motion. So I think there's an amendment that's coming up on the screen. I hope people will take a look at it. I think the message that we want to give here tonight is that London is interested in this. We need to figure out the details to find out if it's a viable opportunity for the city to partner in. And I know that you have a board meeting this week. So the amendment that's coming up speaks to an international plowing match, whether it be the 2020 and we can pull it together by then, or a future one. London is interested. I think it's that we need to figure out the details and what we need. Having gone to a plowing match, I have in-laws who are very involved with trucks and tractors, and I lied earlier, it was not an international harvester, it was a Silver King, which is rare, and it's currently a harvester truck in my garage. So I think I've been around this community. I know the passion, the interest, the volunteerism. I think that I perhaps have a unique outlook on the amount of work that you're looking for from London versus what my colleagues might be expecting. And I think that the community involved in this does come together, and I think they're planning to do the bulk of the work. What we heard was they need snow fence, maybe some help with parking and security, and those are the details that I think that we need as a council to figure out what you need from us so we can make the decision. So I really think that the motion that's coming up, I hope will be supported, is saying, let's go back and say, yes, we are interested. If we can pull it together by 2020, you can be clear with us about what you need, then we can make that decision. Or we look at 2021 or 2022, but we are interested in supporting the plowing match. We are interested in agriculture, and we're interested in taking this on together if the details work out for the City of London. So Deputy Mayor Hubert, I don't know if I summed it up in a way that you approve of, or if you'd like to add on to that, but I hope that people can get behind that. I don't think we need to debate. I think most people are in the same place, is yes, we're interested, but what are the details? And then we know if we can actually commit.
Okay, looks like we've got some convergence here. The new language is up on screen. Councillor Rusher, I had you next on the speakers list.
I'm not going to go too long. I think that I'm interested in this, and I allow Councillor Ridley to second it. I think that this, to me at least, it answers a lot of the concerns that I heard around the horseshoe. So I do have a few questions for the speaker up there, but I think that I'm going to leave that for the time being. And if I get an opportunity to ask questions later or another time, I'll ask those questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So I have no additional speakers on the list at this time. I have Councillor Helmer.
Thank you, and I wanted to listen to my colleagues thoroughly debate this one, and certainly that has happened. I think we're on minute 80 of talking about this, so welcome to the city deliberations. This is usually how they go. I want to say to my colleagues, this is, I guess, not immediately obvious what we should do here. I would say on the one hand, can we host an international plowing match in the City of London? Sure. There's lots of farmers, there's lots of agricultural land. I think if people were interested in hosting it, I'm sure we could pull it off. That doesn't mean that we should host the international plowing match. And I really haven't heard a lot of good arguments about why we should host it. So certainly, about 38% of the land in our city is agricultural, and I think that's important. But in our county, our agricultural land is only 6% of the agricultural land in the county. So, we're 39,000 acres. The agricultural land in the county is 661,000 acres. That's just in Middlesex County. In the province of Ontario, it's 13.9 million acres of agricultural land. We are just this teeny tiny little fraction, right? So I think we have to keep it in context. Similarly, there are a lot of municipalities in Ontario. About 260, about 60% of those municipalities have fewer than 10,000 people. Lots of municipalities with fewer than 10,000 people can host the international plowing match. And frankly, if you look over the list, that's the kind of municipality that is hosting it a lot. Sometimes it's just a few hundred people, and they draw from all of surrounding areas, and they frankly do a huge amount of work to pull off these very successful events. What I'm very reluctant to do is to get involved in something that goes to rural municipalities, smaller municipalities that frankly could use the economic development that comes from, and the economic impact that comes from hosting one of these events. There are a lot of events that we can host in the City of London that they cannot host, right? No little small municipality is going to be bidding on the Junos, right? They're not gonna have the World Juniors come to town. They're not gonna have the Memorial Cup. You know, you need certain kind of facilities in a city to host those kind of events. And I think we have to recognize that although we are an urban and rural city, and we have certainly lots of agricultural land, that I don't think we should be kind of throwing our weight around and getting involved in one of these international plowing matches when it's a perfectly good event for rural municipalities. Because whatever year it is that we're going to host it, that's going to be a year where a rural municipality doesn't. And I don't really get that. I don't understand why this event in particular is really well suited to the City of London. If our neighbors in Middlesex County want to host an event, as they have in the past in Glencoe, and I think before that in Lucan, that would be great, and it's close enough that people from London can go there. I think that's very helpful. If people in Huron County want to host another one a couple years from now, I'm sure people, as they did this year, will travel from London and go there. It's not that far. And, you know, I think a lot of the people in London who want to attend those events get to benefit from them when they're in our region anyway. I think there needs to be a reason why we should do it. Why us and not, you know, Finch? I was thinking about this. I was looking over the list of all these places that have hosted it, and Finch was on there in 2015. Most people don't know this, but my great uncle Lyndon was the reeve of Finch for many, many years, and I'm sure I wish he was alive to have seen when the international plowing match came to Finch, because I think he would have enjoyed that. And he certainly would have been involved. I think we have to ask ourselves, you know, why are we even spending 80 minutes talking about this? You know, we have a lot of things that we got to do in the City of London. And I don't really like to priority scold people. I certainly commend the councillor for bringing forward an idea that he thinks, you know, there's economic impact here. It'd be good for our city. I think it's worth bringing it forward. But we're spending a lot of time talking about it because it's not really clear what the rationale is for why London should be involved in hosting it. I think that's why it's taken so long. I think it's also the fact that we don't really have a lot of supporting documentation other than what's come forward from the councillor, which I think was quite helpful actually, but not a lot of analysis or anything like that from our staff. So we spent a lot of time talking about it. I think some people want to go ahead with it because it seems promising, but I would just ask yourself, like, what is the specific reason that London should do this and not a smaller rural municipality, either in southwestern Ontario or in eastern Ontario?
Councillor Zafin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief. I very much echo Councillor Helmer's comments, and you know, it's just frustrating to sit here and listen to talk about, in my mind, essentially nothing. We haven't done or accomplished really anything today. We haven't moved this substantially forward, and it just gets really frustrating. You know, I will say that for me, from a vulnerability perspective, in my head right now, recovering from my concussion still, you know, to me, I think that these types of things can be moved on a lot more expediently. You know, there is a very significant importance, I think, if we're bringing something forward for council to consider, that the appropriate information is presented to us. And to me, I haven't had enough information really brought forward to me today to want to move forward on this. And then I think just from a position perspective on this item, you know, I represent, I'm not sure, but possibly the largest agricultural portion of the city. Myself, Councillor Hopkins, and Councillor Usher. I haven't heard anybody talk about this, suggest that this is something that we really need to do in the city. If there was, and maybe I'll hear from them after whatever today happens, that's great. But I haven't so far. You know, there are lots of things that we do in our community to support the agricultural community, like our recent reduction in taxes on agricultural properties. I think that's pretty significant. So, you know, if this is something that council wants to do, that's fine, but I haven't really seen it identified in any of our priorities, something that we really want to focus on. You know, I think we talked about the Junos before, but, you know, council, we very much agreed that we wanted to have a music office in our city because music was something we wanted to prioritize and focus on and spend our money and efforts on. And so I think I'm not going to, you know, badger on priorities, but you know, we have to be careful where we're spending our money, but our time as well. Thanks.
Other speakers? Okay, I'd like to speak briefly to this. I'd like to do it from the chair just for expediency's sake. I want to hand things over to Councillor Armstrong for the last word because it was his idea. I'm just going to start with one question, and my question is, pardon me, to Ms. Lasby. Is there any question that you were hoping we'd ask that we didn't that you wanted to answer?
No, I don't think so, but there are a couple of things I'd like to clarify if I could, please. Thank you. First of all, we're really proud of the fact that this is the only event in the province of Ontario where the Ontario Legislature adjourns for the day so that all the MPPs can attend the match. No other event can say that. We were thrilled that not only did we have the Prime Minister this year, but we also had the Prime Minister's wife and his family. That's how well our event is thought of throughout Canada. Second of all, I just want to clarify a point about the land use. We do not use the land for 2 years. As was stated, I think, earlier. We don't move on to the site of Tented City until about the third week of July, and then onto the RV park the first week of August. We have a longstanding partnership with Hydro One, and they come in and put up the primary poles, and that they start early August. The parking fields and the plowing fields are not used until the week of. So certainly we work with the farmers so that they can get all the crops off that they want. We just require a crop rotation. That's where the 2-year thing comes in. But they can certainly take hay crops off there right up until the 1st of August. So again, farming and we think we're very good stewards of the land, and we continue to be so. This is an unusual approach for us too, but that's not to say it's the wrong approach. So thank you for your interest. I think it's been a very interesting conversation.
Thank you very much. And I'm just going to say a couple of things from the chair. The first is to Ms. Lasby, to the Ploughman's Association members who are here today. Thank you for taking the time to be a part of this, and thank you for what I'm sure was a great deal of work on the front end of this as well to provide information to our community. I also want to thank Councillor Armstrong for bringing this forward. Each of us has the opportunity to bring forward ideas. Some of them seem less probable for success than others. You'll recall earlier last month, Councillor Morgan brought forward an idea to council, and we spent a good deal of time talking about it. It's our prerogative, and so I would encourage every councillor that has an idea to bring forward to do it, and to do it at committee. This was great committee work from my perspective, colleagues. We had a great debate. Many different sides to the issue were explored. There were two directions that we could have headed. There was a lot of similarity between those two, and there was convergence established between the mover and between another councillor. Other councillors who brought ideas forward through the debate specifically focused on timeline, and maybe that's too tight. That's been worked into this language as well, and so I'm proud to support this. I think this is council committee at its finest. I think this was a very good discussion. There are 15 of us. Each of us has 5 minutes to speak. Sometimes that takes a little while, but you know what? Almost every time that we do that we take the time, we get it right. And so this is going to allow us to take a look at a significant opportunity, one where I think there's some interest from the organizers and some potential excitement about our community taking a look at this as a potential opportunity for us and an ability to work together. So lots of unanswered questions. Those are going to be answered based on the direction that we see here, provided that this pass. And I'm very pleased to support it. I want to thank everyone for being a part of this debate. And again, I want to thank the mover of the referral and the mover of a different motion for working together to come up with an idea that I think there's some solid support around. So with that, I'd like to hand things over to Councillor Armstrong for the final words, since this was his initial idea.
Well, thank you very much, Your Worship, and I certainly can support this, and I appreciate the debate and the cooperation. It's great to see when a council works together and comes up with a motion like this. I think it's important to understand that, first of all, I better recognize the work that was done by Ashley and Sarah, the assistants in the councillor's office, and the contract assistant. They did hours of work on this issue and research and so on. So I want to recognize the work that they did and thank all the organizations and agencies that sent in letters of support for this, and most importantly, the Argyle Business Improvement Association. They were the ones that came to the table. They're willing to put in money and support this endeavor from beginning to end. So I think just concerned about timelines, that there may be an opportunity today, like in the near future, for us to look at this again and make a decision one way or the other. And I wouldn't want to lose out an opportunity for 2020 when it appears to me there is a real opportunity. Next time round, somewhere down the road, we may be more in a competitive situation. And that's the fact, that's reality. So won't be here as a council to look at that. And I really think that if we can pull this together, work with the Ploughman's Association, and I really think that this is a real opportunity for our city. I know I went out and I talked to almost all the property owners who own rural properties in my ward, talking to them about whether or not they would be interested in making their lands available for an event like this. And I came here today to tell you that I already accumulated 500 acres of people who are interested in making their lands available. So that's halfway. So if we can get this, get the cooperation and get our staff to come back with the report early enough, I think there's a real opportunity, and I think that this could be the legacy, the most important legacy and success story of this council. Make no mistake about that. So in any event, thank you all for your debate on this issue.
Okay, so the final word goes to Councillor Armstrong. With that, I'd like to call the question. We've got a motion that's been moved and seconded. We are voting. And we're still voting.
Motion carries 12-3.
Okay, thank you very much, colleagues. Ms. Lasby, members of the Ploughman's Association, thank you very much for being here this evening. You're more than welcome to stay for the remainder of the agenda, but this would also be a good time to take leave if that was your choice as well. And colleagues, I'd like to move then to items for direction, agenda item number 3. I'm going to hand things over to Linda in a moment. We've got, I think, a pretty good workable plan to make our way through committee appointments. And there is some information in your package, as well as an Excel sheet, I think, that we're going to bring up on screen instead of using those flip charts. So not only we can see the movements that occur before we make final decisions, but people watching from home can see as well.
So what I'm going to put up on display is what's found on page 5 of your agenda. And that is the list of committee preferences. And you'll be able to toggle that on your individual monitors as well. So rather than using the flip charts, we thought we have all the information here. It gives you the full picture of what's where. And it might be easier to go through one by one. I can say that for Corporate Services Committee, we do have 5 people who have indicated that as their first preference. You may want to consider whether or not that is suitable and agreeable to you. If that is, we could work on settling the membership of Corporate Services Committee. Planning and Environment Committee is essentially in the same spot. There's 4 individuals that have indicated it as their first preference. There's only 1 individual that's included it as their second preference. Councillor Hopkins has indicated as her first and second. So between the first and second preferences, we could populate Planning and Environment Committee. The next is Community and Protective Services Committee. We do have 2 individuals there that have indicated an interest in serving on CAPS, with 4 other individuals expressing an interest as well. The 4 individuals, you would have to choose from amongst those individuals as to who would fill the 3 remaining spots. And similarly, and lastly, Civic Works Committee, we have 3 people who have indicated an interest, with 3 people indicating that as their second preference. So I'm certainly at the committee's mercy in terms of what direction you wish to deal with these. And then once we get the membership established for each of those committees, then we would go back and determine determine who would serve as chair. You'll remember that that's something that this committee does and is approved by council versus the vice chair, which is appointed by the membership of the committee. In terms of appointment for chair, I can tell you for your information, and certainly those who serve will know, for Civic Works Committee, the present chair or vice chair is Councillor Squire. For Community and Protective Services Committee, the present vice chair is Councillor Usher. He has not indicated that he has a first or second interest in that committee. So if that's the basis for which you make that determination, you would look amongst the members that were appointed. For Corporate Services Committee, the current vice chair is Councillor Helmer. He has indicated an interest in serving as chair. And Planning and Environment Committee, similarly, Councillor Turner is currently serving as vice chair and has also indicated an interest in serving as chair to that committee. So I certainly turn to through the chair, I turn to the committee to determine how they wish to proceed.
Okay, thank you. We've got to start somewhere. If I'm correct, you were suggesting that we start with CSC, go to planning, go to CAPS, go to Civic Works, work our way in that direction.
Correct.
Looks like there's some agreement around the horseshoe on that, so why don't we start then with CSC? Councillor Salee, did you want to speak?
Yep, I'll move the motion for CSC.
Okay, moving the motion for CSC based on the first preferences. Seconded by Councillor Usher.
So if you don't mind, what I'll do is I'll highlight what the selections are, so then when I go back to my seat, I can put them all up at once for adoption, if that's all right, rather than running back and forth. Yes.
Okay, so what we'll do is, there's agreement around the horseshoe here. So what we'll do is we'll do one motion for everybody, once we have the list populated, but I think we can move on then from corporate services at this point. We'll move down to planning, and we'll deal with committee chairs at the end. So here we are at planning, looking for any input, any speakers.
Thanks, Your Worship. I would like to ask if Councillor Hopkins would like, if Councillor Helmer would like to join Peck as well from his second choice in.
Okay. Councillor Helmer?
Yep, that's why I put it my second choice.
And committee, I should have mentioned that we're prepared to do ranked ballots if we need to, if we have more than 5. What I might suggest is that we come to agreement on the first 4. And before we make this too complicated, I'd look to Councillor Hopkins and see if she wanted to. I'm already on. Excellent. Yeah. There you are. You're on there twice, first and second. So Councillor Helmer, that makes things pretty easy. I think we've got 5. We've got some agreement there. Let's move on then to CAPS. Councillor Ridley.
Thank you. This past year, with a new job, I slipped down to one committee. In the past, I had served on 2 or 3 in addition to my multiple boards. So I did put myself forward to be on both CAPS and Civic Works, and I'm happy to move over and do CAPS and fill one of those spots.
Okay. So Councillor Ridley has put her name forward for CAPS. Councillor Cassidy, you want to speak? Councillor Squire.
Thank you. And I did the same thing. I intend to serve on 2 committees, and PEC and CAPS were my first and second choice, so I would like to serve on CAPS again.
Okay. Looks like we've got 4 of 5. Councillor Squire? And Councillor Squire is also happy to go on. So it looks like we've got 5 members for CAPS.
The chair did a really great job, so everybody wants to jump on there.
Okay, let's move on then to Civic Works. I think Councillor Salee wanted to put his name forward. Civic Works, so we have Councillor Ridley, Usher, Squire, looking for others. Councillor Park has put her name forward. Just need one more. No one's looking at me. Councillor Helmer.
This worked last year, so I'll put my name forward and then somebody will jump forward, I'm sure.
Okay, looks like we've got 5 for Civic Works. Do we have 6? Do we want to do a ranked ballot? No? Okay, a question, Councillor Usher.
Doesn't that mean that Councillor Helmer will sit on 3 committees? Or, okay, just so long as he realizes that.
Okay, I mean, it's up to any individual member of council to serve, to put their name forward to serve on as many committees as they choose. Councillor Helmer's looking for 3. He attends virtually all of them anyway. And I bet sometimes he wants a vote on some of those once he's not a member. Councillor Hopkins.
I'll put my name forward as well on civics.
Okay, at this time, we now have 6 members that have put their name forward for Civic Works. I'll just look to any one of those 6 to see if they want to remove their name. Councillor Park? Otherwise, we'll have to have a vote on this. Councillor Helmer?
Yeah, I'll step off, that's fine. I just wanted to move things along.
Excellent strategy. Okay, we've got 5. I think we've got some consensus on that. So what we should probably do at this point is, do you want to deal with that as a motion and then we'll deal with chairs right afterwards? Sure. Okay. So we'll get that to come up on screen in just a moment. Thanks everybody for their patience.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep, go ahead.
I misread the thing. So I was prepared to serve on both corporate services and Civic Works if need be. Councillor Hopkins, she's following Councillor Helmer's brilliant strategy, has offered to step off. And it's just, in my perspective, it's just about balancing workload so everyone has equal workload. So I'm happy to do that.
Okay. So
And,
both.
I'm also happy to serve as chair.
Okay, both councillors are happy to make that switch. Just looking for some consensus on that. And there is some, so we'll make sure that's reflected in the motion. Okay, colleagues, we think we've got it right. It's up on screen. You might have to scroll down to go through each of the committees. But if you could please take a careful look at the motion before us, moved by Councillor Salee, thank you. We'll look for a seconder as well. Second by Councillor Ridley, thank you. And I'll just, again, provide a little extra time to make sure we all have a chance to take a look at our names and whether we're happy with those committees. Okay, I think we're all set. I'll call the question. We're voting.
Motion carries 15-0.
Remarkable, and quite the contrast from thinking about the 2010 to 2014 appointment to committee process. Thanks, everyone. I think we've got unanimity again on our committee appointments. We've now got to deal with chairs. I looked at the screen just before Linda posted it, and I think there's only one person that's indicated a willingness to chair on each of these areas, but we're going to go through one by one just to be sure, in case someone wants to bring their name forward. Okay, okay. So we had chair written down on some and some not on others.
There's only one.
So let's deal with caps first. I think there was only one for caps. Okay, so we have two, and what we're going to do in that case is have ranked ballot. And so why don't we can deal with whatever committee you want first. Ms. Reid, do you have one queued up?
I know I'm at your mercy,
Not yet.
Chair. If you need me to refresh as to who served as vice chair, if that's a factor in what your decision is. But you'll see indicated in each group, caps is an easy one. There's only one person of the group that have put their names forward.
Okay, so caps, there's now two Councillor Squires indicated an interest. At this point, we can do a vote, but there could be a potential for a ranked ballot if we have a third that comes forward. Go ahead, Councillor. Can you just use your microphone so everybody can hear?
I don't believe a ranked ballot is necessary for two people.
Okay, anyone else interested in putting their name forward? There is not, okay. So what we'll do then is, I guess, look for a motion at this point. And also, we've given potential chairs an opportunity to speak if we're willing to do that as well. I'm open to doing that. So, Councillor Morgan?
I'm just going to inject here and say to my colleagues, the reason why it's not really a ranked ballot when you have two people, but there is value in putting down a 1 and a 2, because otherwise we're going to have a motion and then there's going to be real hesitancy to vote against the person who comes up first on that motion, because you're saying yes or no to a person, whereas if we write it down, you can be very true to your preferences, and although it isn't actually going to be a ranked ballot, everybody can do that, and I think that's a way that is a little less in your face and a little more, I think, comfortable for people. At least it would be for me, and I think that will get a good result.
Okay, thanks for that input. We can certainly do that, and I'm willing to move in that direction right now unless there are any other opinions. Good, okay, so the cards will be distributed. Councillor Van Holst, did you have a question?
Yes, have both councillors had the opportunity to chair a committee?
Go ahead, yeah.
I can advise that during this term of council, both Councillor Morgan, Squire, I'm sorry, we're talking Squire. Yes, Councillor Squire has chaired a committee. And Councillor, sorry, I've got too many charts on the go here. So, Squire and Usher, yes, in both instances, those individuals have served previously as a chair.
Any other speakers? Can we distribute those voting cards, please? Yep. Thank you.
I should add that Well, it's not a ranked ballot per se. Certainly the results of what we're doing, we cannot have secret ballots. So the information that's contained on here will be reflected in the minutes of the meeting.
Just for CSC?
Councillor Van Holst.
We were starting with, I'm sorry, Council.
No, thank you. And a question, although I can't see down to it, is Councillor Squire is my vice chair on Civic Works Committee, and is he planning to be the chair of that committee as well, or is hoping? No.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, of course not. If I was elected to this committee, just so you know, I would have put my name forward to chair this committee, but I thought the vice chair might, so out of deference, I didn't. But now that he's not applying, I am. But I certainly wouldn't serve as chair of two committees, no.
Any other questions? Councillor Cassidy?
And I just want to say as well that I didn't know if the vice chair of planning was going to put his name forward or not, because as you know, they ask us for our preferences. So I'd indicated that I was willing to chair PEC, but I do know that Councillor Turner wants to do that, so I'm not going to put my name forward to chair planning.
Other speakers? Okay, you've got your voting cards. If you could please fill them out, let the clerks know when they're available for pickup. Councillor Armstrong, have you had an opportunity to register your vote?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Councillor Park?
I would like to move a 5-minute recess, if I may.
Okay, let's move a 5-minute recess. That'll give the clerks an opportunity to tabulate. They won't be that long, but this is a good opportunity for us to stretch our legs. We've got 5 minutes. We'll be back at 6:03.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Councillor Park.
One second.
Seconder. Yeah, we'll do that once you take the vote. Councillor Cassidy. Councillor Salee.
Couldn't we just then rank whatever we have to rank and then they can just, instead of taking a break between each vote?
There's a motion, there's an interest in having a recess. We've been at it for a couple hours. Let's put it to a vote. All those in favor of the recess? All those opposed? There's one opposed. Motion carries. Okay, let's call the meeting back to order. It is 6:05. We have quorum. I'll look to the city clerk or deputy clerk to report out on the vote.
Yes, I'll get Ms. Saunders to display, but it's 10-5 in favor of Councillor Cassidy, so I am happy to place a motion on the.
Okay, so we'll have a motion come up to appoint Councillor Cassidy then to chair the committee. That's been moved by Councillor Park, seconded by Councillor Ridley. Any discussion? Let's call the question. We're voting.
Motion carries 15-0.
Okay, how about we move to Civic Works next? Yep, Councillor Hopkins.
Yes, Mr. Chair, who becomes the vice chair?
That will be the first order of business at the first meeting of the new term of the committee.
Okay, want to move to Civic Works? We'll move to Civic Works then. I'm just checking my notes. Okay, so I'm showing that 2 committee members that are on the committee have put their name forward to be chair, Councillor Squire and Councillor Hubert. Anyone else? Civic Works.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
That's my fault.
wait a minute.
Yeah, we are doing civic.
We're doing Civic Works. I think Councillor Ridley has put her name forward to be chair. Councillor Usher has put his name forward to be chair. So we've got 4 people interested in serving as chair. Okay. And I just want to confirm that all 4 of those council members want their name to stand on the ballot. Yeah. Okay, great. So if we can just get the voting card distributed then, please.
The 4 that have indicated an interest are Councillors Ridley, Usher, Squire, and Hubert, and the current vice chair would be Councillor Squire.
Councillor Ridley.
Thank you. I know we didn't do it before the last vote formally, but I wonder if we could have an opportunity to speak.
Yeah, I believe I extended an opportunity to both members to speak. I'll extend an opportunity to each member who's put their name forward. It's up to them to take that opportunity. Councillor Ridley.
Thank you. So I would like to take that opportunity if now is the time. I did put my name forward last year for Civic Works Committee. This committee I've sat on for 3 years. I had also put my name forward to be the vice chair of Civic Works last time. However, did not make it in time for the vote to occur, and the committee proceeded with a vote in my absence. I was 3 minutes late for that meeting and notified the chair. So I certainly had an interest in being vice chair. I have an interest in being the chair. I hope that people would support me. Certainly, I look at it from a governance point of view and moving the meetings along and doing a good job that way. So I look for people's support.
Thank you, Councillor Ridley. Councillor Usher, Hubert, Squire, any of you like to speak to putting your name forward? Councillor Usher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and fellow councillors. I'm not going to make it long. Civic Works Committee is one of the committees that I enjoy. I'm an engineer, and a lot of the stuff there are engineering forte type things, and I have a deep interest in it. Not only do I have a deep interest in it, but I also have a deep understanding of it. I'm not putting anybody down when I say that, by the way. I just want you to know that. But I always enjoy working in that. It is true that I have served as the chair of this committee in the past. In fact, when the committee was named Civic, Civic Works, I was the one who came up with that name so that it could have that type of work that it does, because it was all Civic Works. So on that basis, I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Squire. Deputy Mayor Hubert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was As people have indicated, I was the vice chair of Civic Works this year, and certainly am interested in becoming chair. I have no other responsibilities going forward this year. I won't be staying on as chair of the Rapid Transit Implementation Working Group. I want to give someone else an opportunity to do that. So I've been chair once of planning, gave up the opportunity to someone else, and would certainly hope I would be given the opportunity to move from the vice chair position up to the chair position, but I'll leave that to those of you who are voting. That's all I have to say.
Deputy Mayor Hubert.
Well, happy to serve and happy to draw out the strengths of the colleagues that will be serving on that committee. I recognize that my opinion is not the opinion that carries, it's the opinion of the group that carries, and so I'll be looking forward to hearing those things. My first term of council, I spent 4 years on the Environment and Transportation Committee that then became the artist known as the Civic Works Committee, and so I would like to actually end my term on that committee as well.
Okay, so each member has had an opportunity to speak. If you could please rank your voting cards.
Council should, or the committee should decide as well, too, in terms of process. Are members allowed to put just one individual and the ranking of 4 goes to the remaining candidates? Or are you ranking 1 to 4? That's something you're going to have to give direction on.
Yeah, as chair, I know we've come up with this issue in the past. I'm asking colleagues to rank 1 to 4 to be consistent. If you need to get your voting card back to do that, please do so as we await a formal policy on how we vote, but we need to be consistent, and I'm asking for 1 to 4.
Mr. Mayor? Mr. Mayor? Mr. Mayor? Mr. Brown? Mr. Mayor, while we're waiting, could we table the resignation from the implementation working group in the meanwhile, or no?
The first individual that will drop off the list would be Counselor Usher with a total sum of 48. So in the next round, it would be Counselor Hubert that falls off the list. With the redistribution of votes, we end up with 41, 24, and 26. And Councillor Squire is the next individual that would fall off the list, leaving Councillor Ridley.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll get a motion up on screen. Okay, motion's up on screen, moved by Councillor Zafman, seconded by Councillor Hopkins. Any discussion? Let's call the question. We're voting.
Motion carries 15-0.
Colleagues, let's move then to planning and the environment. We have two people interested in putting their name forward, possibly three. Councillor Cassidy?
Oh, I'm not interested. I would like to remove my name, and if we don't do a ranked ballot, I would like to nominate Councillor Turner.
So Any others interested in putting their name forward? Councillor Turner's been nominated. Is there someone willing to second Councillor Turner? No? Okay. It's a bit of a pickle. Councillor Park? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any speakers? I think you should.
There we go. Your worship, I humbly accept well, if you actually vote for me, it's true. But here's my pitch, is if we do this, I pledge to get a countdown timer for speaker timers. In fact, the city of Winnipeg does this. It's something I learned on my trip there, and so you get the 5-minute countdown. It's visible to everybody, and you don't have to.
I would second that motion, and I think we should have a klaxon alarm that goes off at the 5-minute, or an ooga, or something like that. Okay, so Councillor Turner moved by, it'll come up on screen in a moment. Councillor Hopkins, seconded by Councillor Zafman. Let's call the question. All those in favor? Well, we're voting on screen, aren't we? And we're voting.
Motion carries 15-0. Thanks, Paul.
Okay, colleagues, up on screen should be a list of the members of corporate services. And I'm showing 3 members interested in serving as chair, Councillor Hubert, Councillor Helmer, and Councillor Morgan. Councillor Hubert, Deputy Mayor Hubert.
I'll be removing my name in deference to my vice chair.
Okay, so we've got 2 members. Any additional members? So it's limited to 2. We'll still use the voting card. We'll call it the Morgan principle. And Councillors Morgan or Helmer, did you want to speak to your colleagues about serving as chair for the year of 2018?
Sure, I'll be brief. I've served on corporate services for my entire term of council. Thanks to colleagues for putting me there. I had a chance to chair for part of a year. I was the vice chair that year, and last year I asked if we could, turn that into a chair term this year. We had actually it was Councillor Hubert, our Deputy Mayor Hubert, Councillor Helmer, and myself on that ballot. And we had a vote, and it worked out that Councillor Hubert would be the chair. This is the only committee I'm serving on, so I'm certainly happy to put in the extra effort as chair if my colleagues would like me to, but I certainly think we have excellent candidates, and Councillor Helmer and I will be very supportive of whatever the committee decides.
Councillor Helmer.
So last year, if you didn't rank me first, I hope you'll rank me first this time. I think Councillor Morgan did a fine job chairing the committee. He has chaired the committee. I haven't chaired the committee. I'd like to. I think I do a reasonable job chairing committees.
Okay. So if you could complete the card, hand it over to the clerk.
And Councillor Helmer has a majority of number 1 votes at 10-5.
Okay, colleagues, congratulations to Councillor Helmer. That motion will come up on screen. I'm sure that Councillor Morgan's going to want to move that. Councillor Morgan, did you want to make that motion?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Nope. Councillor Usher, seconded by Councillor Morgan. Any discussion? Let's call the question. We're voting.
Motion carries 15-0. Except for the number 4.
Yeah, okay, colleagues. We have agenda item number 4. This is the council member submission. This is a resignation from the Rapid Transit Implementation Working Group. It's been moved by Councillor Usher. It'll come up on screen in a moment. Moved up by Councillor Ridley, seconded by Councillor Cassidy. Any discussion? Thank you very much. Everyone, let's call the question. We're voting.
Councillor Squire? Motion carries 15-0.
Okay, deferred matters, it is. In additional business, there is none, so we'll look for a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Councillor Cassidy, second by Councillor Van Holst. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Meeting adjourned. See everybody tomorrow night. Thanks very much for a productive time.